I honestly think the everything that's happened with COVID-19, I think will be a catalyst for the financial services industry to remove some of those reasons why they couldn't in the past, because actually many organizations are showing that you can.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Engati Engage. I'm Aish, and for this episode, we have the pleasure of welcoming David Brear. Before I dive in, remember to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Let's begin with a quick introduction of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots, created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog and video channel that receives upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. David is the group CEO of 114S. He also hosts shows revolving fintech and insurtech. Having pitched, established, and run billion-pound transformations for some of the biggest FS companies on the planet, the realization that digital banking is only 1% finished has spurred his desire to establish an organization that can actually make it happen. Most recently, David has led the creation and market establishment of challenger business bank Metal for NatWest in the UK, and as its CEO, proves that big banks can fight back against the fintech threat. So welcome, David. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before I get into our first question, we have a really exciting announcement. We just launched our newest ebook titled Getting to Normalcy, Work from Home to Return to Office. So David, my first question is, where do you see major rethinking happening in the world of fintech due to the corona crisis?
Yeah, I mean, normal is going to be an interesting point because, I don't think we'll return back to the normal that we had before this. I feel like the world, not just in the fintech world, but the world more broadly, I think will be impacted this in some positive ways and some negative ways for forever now. Definitely the changes that we've sort of seen from a positive perspective. I mean, I think a lot of organizations globally have been put into a situation where they've had to adopt very different working practices, whether it's remote working processes or different forms of internal communications. And actually, I think a lot of those things have been proven to really work and have great impact for those organizations. So I'm hoping there's a lot of good lessons there. Obviously, from a negative perspective, I think, inevitably, the problems that we're going to be facing into with this challenge is not really just about the pandemic. It's not just really about COVID-19. It's about the material impact that then has from an economy perspective globally, from unemployment figures again globally, and actually the sort of long-term damage that can have to the economy. I think we're probably going to be feeling the effect of COVID-19 on the economy for at least a decade. If you think with everything that happened with the financial crisis in 2008, in 2020, we were still feeling the effects of it then. I think this one has the potential to be 2, 3, 4 times as much of an impact. But with that comes opportunities. The market conditions for any industry is constantly evolving. I'd say just with everything that's happened with COVID-19, it's been less evolution and more revolution.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I agree with you. I think the effects from this virus is going to be insane on the economy. But it, like you said, it will bring about a lot of opportunity. So I'm glad that the positive mindset is still I think we should all remember that moving forward. If you're interested in this ebook, by the way, stay tuned till the end of the video. We'll talk about it towards the end. So that brings me to my next question. So what are your thoughts on the adoption of AI in fintech?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, given again in the crisis that we're in, and actually more broadly in context, then I always think technology has the place of solving problems for consumers rather than, a lot of people get very excited about machine learning or narrow AI or broad AI, and actually it becomes more of a fixation on the technology than it does the customer's problems. But when you actually look at the world that we live in today, even really sort of narrow AI connected through interfaces, as you say, chatbot interfaces, when you've suddenly got a world where call centers are not open, or people can't walk into a branch to have conversations, then being able to triage calls or triage customer care and understands the urgent from the important, those types of things become really, really critical for businesses to maintain a level of service. So I think given the market conditions changing, then there is much greater opportunities, I think, for customer-facing views of whether it's small forms of artificial intelligence. But I think on a broader scale, then look, globally, lending is becoming a more and more important thing, and using algorithms from either from a risk perspective or from the views of actually being able to make better informed decisions and have the power of the intelligence that we have when it comes to machine learning, when it comes to learning from really large scale data sets. Then I think fintech is definitely sort of pioneering the way for bringing those things in order to de-risk processes and de-risk customers for the big banks and the fintechs alike. So, I mean, I still feel that the best form is to always really understand consumer problems, but then the broader set that you can understand, whether it's a fintech player, a big bank, or a big technology company, the greater understanding that they have of what is possible, the better that they will be of actually solving those real problems.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you completely. I've heard from different people. Some people think that fintech is incredibly, like, they're moving forward and they're embracing technology a lot faster than other industries, whereas some are saying that it's much more conservative. So do you think the industry is much more conservative than others, or is there...
I wouldn't say artificial intelligence particularly shows the sort of conservatism. I'd say, I mean, on the fintech side of things, artificial intelligence requires to do it properly. I mean, if you look at places like, and this is the kind of a difficulty with the subject matter around AI really is, I mean, IBM have been investing in AI, billions and billions of dollars for well over 2-3 decades. So everything that they've been doing, from the days when simple artificial intelligence was playing chess with people to now it's running, merged data sets with everything that they're doing with Watson around healthcare records and looking for trends and analyzing these things. So, real large scale artificial intelligence requires real, very significant investment over a very long, prolonged period of time. I'd say most fintechs are looking for commoditized technology that they can plug and play. It's the reason why they've adopted cloud services so quickly, is because it's cheap, it's quick, and it's effective. It's a thing they can pick up and use. I think at the point where the maturity of machine learning, artificial intelligence, it is really plug and play, and it's the default, then everybody will really start using it. But the areas of research and development, I'd say most fintechs are more focused on today's customer problems than necessarily tomorrow and further down the line. I think they do get there as those organizations scale and get bigger customers, and larger organizations on the SME side of things. Then the nature of the problems that they look to start to solve for people will evolve as well. But very much, I'd say, artificial intelligence is always sort of on the cusp of adoption. But when it does, then I'm sure it will be the tool that people will be using to really sort of get to grips with the customer's problems.
Yes, I agree with you. So now that we've spoken about AI, let's talk about conversational intelligence. So what are your thoughts on conversational intelligence or chatbots for internal and customer support, lead generation, or even processes like policy issuance and claim filing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm in a group of people where, as a sample size of one, the worst thing I can do, or the worst thing an organization can make me do, is pick up the phone to talk to them. So from my perspective, anything that I can do to avoid that, given the customer support, customer care, In the financial services side of things, particularly on the SME side, most people don't start a business to do business banking. Therefore, the financial running of their business is something, particularly when they're a real small, enterprise, is something that'll happen on the sofa at night time, or, like glances of it at the weekends. Mm-hmm. So anything that we can do to create interfaces that can work around people rather than the people working around your processes, the better for me. And as you say, on the organizational side of things, then, in the UK, with regards to all of the applications for loans, or, the processes for triaging those things, I think that's where conversational interfaces can work really, really effectively. We've actually seen some really interesting conversational interfaces for other purposes as well. I think, some really great examples out there within the fintech space of people using it for onboarding processes, rather than having a form where it's like, fill in these 15 data sets and sort of, press submit. Then actually it's much more natural to do it in a conversation, and actually build up that information with people. And I actually think that leads to a very different type of relationship that you have with those brands that use it and use it really well, because moving into I submit all my information to you and you judge me whether I'm applicable for something, or you start to create a dialogue between the customer and the company. I think it changes the dynamic of that relationship. So yeah, I can see there's some real great use cases for where it can be used really, really effectively to either create a great experience or just manage customers' expectations a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I think it builds, at least with your example, it builds a much stronger relationship between the customer and the company. Whereas a form, it feels very like cut and dry. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel very personal. But I think by using a conversational intelligence, it sort of builds that sort of relationship, which I think right now lots of companies should be focusing on building a much loyal quality customer base. And I think using conversational intelligence will definitely help with that.
Well, and I think starting a relationship with a customer where you ask for information, they're used to you asking for information when you need it, and you're clear why you're asking for it, and therefore what you're going to be doing with it. I think very much the industry within financial services has been, ask for 60 different data points before they're allowed to be a customer. But I think with things like, progressive discovery of information, and actually the impact that can have on, security measures that you can put in place, or products or services that can be opened up to customers as you discover more information, not just on a, you ask and they tell narrative, but based on behaviors as well, in terms of the way in which they spend or interact, or the contextual awareness of actually where they are in terms of asking those questions. So again, I think all of this leads to again, much more of a dialogue between customers and companies, and that is a great thing. The more you can make sure that you're talking to your customers, the more you can ensure that you're able to serve them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the age of using other processes like you said, filling out a form, I think those are becoming more obsolete now. And I think that conversational intelligence is definitely gonna pave the path. So I think that's incredible. So how do you think fintech companies are using social and digital channels to connect with customers? Speaking of our previous question, like, do you see?
Yeah,
sorry.
See, I'd say on the social side of things, I think this is where fintechs have got it much better. I think actually, if you kind of look at the tone and the narrative that many of them have used in terms of transparency of communication, talking to just humans like humans, the tone through social media is much more playful and engaging. There's absolutely no reason why financial services has to be boring. There's no reason why, it should be so, prim and proper. And actually, I think increasingly people are wanting brands and wanting to be with brands that represent them better and interact with them in a better way. So I think the use, people like Monzo, people like Starling, got people like Chime over in the US as well. I mean, globally, there are really great examples of organizations that are taking their internal tone, the way in which they, talk internally to employees, and sort of exposing that into social media to generate more community. I mean, arguably, there have been communities around money and around financial services for such a long period of time, but really brands enabling that, and using that as opportunities to provide platforms that people can help each other, and dispelling myths, or even increasing education around financial services topics. Community for me is really such a driving point on fintech, and not just here in the UK, but globally as well.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think with the rise of social media, a lot of brands are trying to focus on making their customer feel needed, feel special, feel valuable. So I think social media is really helping with that. I haven't seen it much with a lot of financial service companies, but it does raise the question, if other brands are doing it, then why not this industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting one, because I think everybody always points at, well, financial services is a very heavily regulated industry, and the regulator won't like it. But I've spoken to many regulators around the planet. None of them want financial services organizations to talk like robots. They want humans to be helped. They're looking for great outcomes for the public, and a big part of that is them really understanding their financial lives and really understanding financial terms, and hiding behind acronyms or things that people just don't understand is not a great way to serve customers. So for me, anything that can really dispel some of those myths about financial services, and actually just make the whole industry a little bit more approachable.
Yeah.
And actually, again, I really do believe that people want brands that represent them, either how they do business or how their business models work. I think the move, I think it's why we're seeing increasingly a focus in bigger financial services players on things like ethical finance, because people make decisions on, now that we've all globally got much more choice over who we bank with and who we will invest our money and invest our time, then actually all of those organizations has to do more to gain our trust and gain our business. That's a great place to be, because when you've got choice, then you can choose to be with somebody, or you can choose to be with somebody else, which is a great place to be.
So are there any other thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think I sort of hope that, and maybe leaving everybody with a little bit of hope is, I hope actually the world that we sort of move into post this pandemic actually sees that there's so much opportunity. I honestly think the everything that's happened with COVID-19, I think, will be a catalyst for the financial services industry to remove some of those reasons why they couldn't in the past, because actually many organizations are showing that you can. And I think whether it's, I've said before, but the strategy for most big incumbent organizations when it came to remote working progressed more in a 3-week period when lockdown kicked in than the preceding 15 years. And actually, I think many organizations now are using that to go, we always thought we couldn't do these things, but now actually we've proven, with the right market conditions, with the right level of urgency and the right level of sponsorship within our organization, that actually we can do anything that the fintech players can do themselves. So I think if bizarrely, the fintechs are setting a great tone and narrative and showing where opportunity is, but the big incumbent organizations have still got all of the customers and actually have capital investment that could allow them to do really significant things. So for me, it's probably one of hope. It's that the everything that we've gone through is in order to allow us to be better off on the other side of this. And for me, you kind of got to hope there's a good reason at the end of this, and an opportunity that actually everybody can benefit from.
Mm-hmm. I've been hearing this line a lot, and I think it ties into this interview really well. But necessity is the mother of invention. So I really do think that I'm hoping that businesses really take this opportunity to really evolve and maybe outgrow some of their older business practices to sort of cater to the customer more. I think that at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'd say the interesting thing on evolution is it's not for everybody, right? And actually, what we often forget is there are many organizations throughout history, and not just the big ones. It's not just the blockbusters and the Nokias of the world that people kind of remember very heavily, Kodak, etc. Every year, there are organizations who do not evolve and continue to do the same thing that made them successful in the first place, and they cease to exist, and they're usurped by organizations who can fit the market conditions better and are more adaptable to change. So I definitely agree with you. I definitely think it's it's a point in time where some bigger steps need to be made, not just incremental evolution, but some real revolution. Because I think probably what has been shown is the things that people thought were the inhibitors, the things that they thought were holding them back, really weren't. It was them. And now that they've shown that they can do things, I think we'll see more and more organizations being a bit more adventurous when it comes to the way in which they make these things happen.
Yes. I feel like also it's more to do with the mindset. That's what's really going to change the way businesses function. And also I feel like what this pandemic has taught us, that it's not about how big the company is or how strong the company is, but it's more to do with how open they are to adapting to what's been happening right now.
100%, completely agree.
So thank you so much for talking to us, David. It's been a pleasure, and I've learned some really incredible things from you. Engati Engage will be back with a new expert in a new episode really soon. So stick around and definitely check out our ebook on getting to new normalcy, work from home to return to office. For more details, check in the description down below. And we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.